Alright, so Shazam! Fury of the Gods released in theaters a week ago. I saw it 4 days ago with a friend, and in this video, I'm going to tell you what I thought about it. But before I do that, please make sure to subscribe, hit the like button, hit the bell, and comment down below, what did you guys think of Shazam! Fury of the Gods? Are you going through superhero movie fatigue? I know I sure am. But before I do that, I'm going to give you a bit of background with the Shazam franchise and the DCEU as a whole. So, the first Shazam, easily one of the better DCEU movies. Sure, it has problems. Probably the most fun I've ever been having while watching a DCEU movie. The rest of the DCEU feels very mangled and messed up. But this movie didn't really tie anything together, but it was a fun enough, enjoyable time sitting down on my couch watching the movie. This movie, however, I was not looking forward to. Not only did I think that the trailers were terrible, both of them, but there's also this drama around this movie. So all this drama and plus the marketing, they actually spoiled a cameo, a pretty big cameo at the end of the movie too. And so just the whole thing was on its way to be a big disaster. So I was just very nervous for this movie. Now we're going to talk about what did I think of it personally. And kicking it off, we just got to address the fact that this is not a perfect movie, nor is it anywhere near close to as good as the first Shazam was. But honestly, it is a solid enough movie that definitely had a little bit of the superhero movie fatigue, but it also has some of the stuff that made the first Shazam so unique that made this movie enjoyable to watch. And, of course, I enjoyed it. Every superhero movie for a while now, I've enjoyed the first two acts, and it's always fell apart in the third act for me because I don't care to watch another big CGI battle. This one, kind of the same thing, but this big CGI battle in the end wasn't all that bad. It was actually pretty enjoyable, and I liked it in that sense. The final battle felt like it had stakes, and even though the trailers felt like, oh, they're just fighting a dragon, this one felt like they had stakes because these villains are pretty menacing. I really don't like them as much. The villains in these first two Shazam movies aren't great for me, but that certainly doesn't mean that this movie doesn't have stakes, because it does, 100%. Has very big stakes, and it feels like that. There will be spoilers in this video. It will be in the title, so go ahead and read the title. You already know, and if you already wanted to see it, it's been out a week. No one saw this movie, so whatever. But the movie leads you to believe that Shazam dies in the end, and I genuinely thought that he was going to die. I genuinely thought by the end of the movie that Shazam was dead, and the movie is pretty good by convincing me, oh crap, our lead hero, a kid, just got murdered saving the world, and that would have been great. It would have been amazing trick at the end. Of course, we all got the cameo. Again, spoilers, Wonder Woman shows up, saves his life, and I thought that was pretty cool, but it's so well in the sense that it made me believe that Shazam was going to die, and felt like there were big stakes in the finale. Also, the cast here, very good. Jack Dylan Grazer was a big standout for me as, what's his name? Freddy. By the beginning of the movie, I sat back and I'm like, oh, so this is what we're doing? We're following Freddy instead of Shazam. And I didn't like it at first. But the more the movie goes on, he proves his own. He can carry a movie. And his interactions with the Wizard were hilarious. Those were the big times that I laughed out loud really hard. I thought that was very solid in that sense. Plus the rest of the cast, obviously we got to talk about Zachary Levi. He's not as good in this movie as he was in the first Shazam. In the first Shazam, I sat back and I was like, wow, he's playing a kid so good. And he doesn't do that all that great, maybe because his character isn't as great, but he's still solid. The rest of the cast, very good. Helen Mirren, Rachel Zegler, they all do a pretty good job in this movie. And even though the movie's not as entertaining as the first one, I still think the cast is just as solid. Comedy, this film's got to have some good comedy, right? And like I'm saying a lot, it's not as good as the first Shazam, but the comedy here is still solid. There were a couple times that I laughed out loud. Again, not as much as the original Shazam, but I still laughed out loud, and some of the things were very funny, especially when Jack Dylan Grazer was on screen with the Wizard. I really liked their chemistry. I really think they had it there, and I really thought it was hilarious. And overall, it's just a harmless, fun family film. It's not as bad as Black Adam was. It's not as terrible. It's not as mature as Suicide Squad. It's a family film, focused for families to get in the theater and enjoy. And that, to me, is very solid. It's very solid and very enjoyable. Also, the CGI here is pretty good. We got the dragon that they made an interesting choice of making it made by wood, which I think is pretty unique and original. And all the monsters that come out at the end, they all look good and they're all cool to see on a big screen. But like I said, this is just a family film. Watch it with your family. There's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing here that really will take you off while watching it. Definitely I had problems with it. Definitely after 4 days later, the more I think about it, the more I dislike it. But it's just a harmless family film. You can't really hate on the movie because it's just made for families. And that's why I'm not really going to hate on it. But of course, I did have problems. And the first one for me, the story here. The story here is a bit mangled, that I couldn't really tell what was going on with this story. At first, it was like, these people want the staff so they could take the power of the gods, and kind of introduce some kind of plot point there that didn't really make sense to me. And then we move on, and like, no, they want to restore their land with a golden apple that we didn't learn much about. And then we are going to take over the main world, and it just feels all mangled to where by the end of the movie, I just felt exhausted with this film. And when I walked away, I was like, yeah, that was a solid movie. But the more I think about it, like, would I want to watch this movie again? No, I honestly don't think I would ever watch this movie again. Now, maybe if my family wants to, maybe I would sit down. I wouldn't necessarily complain, but the movie just feels exhausting. And as we head into the third act, like I said, I didn't necessarily hate the final battle here. It was a pretty solid final battle, especially when we got to the end and we think Shazam's dead. But it definitely needed to be shorter. This movie runs at 2 hours and 10 minutes. Definitely should have been a 90-minute film. That would have totally enhanced my experience. I totally would have said I really like this movie if it wasn't 2 hours and 10 minutes. Feels long, feels exhausting, and it's definitely a big negative there for me. Now, honestly, if this came out in literally any other time, I genuinely think I would have loved this movie, but we had come out in 2023 to where we've had countless superhero movies to where they're all the exact same thing. So by the end of this one, I was looking for something to be fresh, original, and better, and I really didn't get fresh, original out of this one. I got a fun enough sequel that definitely is not perfect, especially compared to the first movie, which is one of the better DCEU films. Alright, so before I give you my final score, make sure to join me down below in the comment section. Tell me, what did you guys think of Shazam 2: Fury of the Gods? I want to know all that and more. Also, I do have a DC tier list. I literally just finished watching Zack Snyder's Justice League. Cannot wait to talk about it. I'm going to have a review of that on my second channel. I got all this content coming up, so make sure you subscribe to both of my channels to watch those. And here's my final thoughts. Fury of the Gods is a fun enough time at the movie theater. I enjoyed watching the first two acts, and the final battle wasn't all that bad, except the more we go on, the more it just seems way too long and kind of just feels very, convoluted for me. I don't necessarily love this. I don't necessarily want to watch it again. It's a fine enough movie, and that's why it's getting a B- from me, and do not take your kids to go see this movie. Just wait till it's on HBO Max. It'll be on HBO Max soon enough. It's not worth spending $60 to go see this movie. And so, yeah, that was my review. Make sure to subscribe to both of my channels so you can get all that content coming up. And thank you guys for clicking on this video. Remember, tell me down below, what did you guys think of Shazam! Fury of the Gods? Stay tuned for my DCEU tier list. And with that said, subscribe to join the Nerd Army. Peace out.